Good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Montclair City Council. I will call the meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. We will now have our invocation. Ms. Phillips, can you tell us tonight who will be doing the invocation with us?
The invocation will be led by Shri Sharana of the Nityananda Vedic Temple, and the pledge will be led by Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you very much for the opportunity given to me to chant the prayers on behalf of Nityanandeshwara Hindu Temple. With my prayers, I pray to the God to shower blissfulness to all the citizens of this county. And I'll start. Nityanandam Paramasukhadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sudrusham Tattvamasyadilakshya Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Satgurum Tam Namami. Swasti Prajapyah Paripalayantyam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahishah Raja Dharmapati Praja Sucharitah Puja Dhana Sajjanah Satkarma Pravaradvijah Pratidinam Vidya Anavadya Sada Vani Sannihita Chiram Kavimukhaih Sanamdam Avyakulah Sarve Santu Vaidika Dharma Anushthataraha Saujanya Santoshinaha Iti Swasti Mantrardha Sajja Safala Bhavantu Iti Bhavanto Mahamto Nugrunvantu Tadhastu Sarve Jana Sukinas Santu Tadhastu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Tadhastu Samasta Sanmangalani Santu Tadhastu Sarvatra Nityananda Dvajarohanam Bhavatu Tadhastu Sarvesham Bhagavan Srila Sri Nityananda Paramashiva Sri Jnana Sambandha Deshka Varmacharya Swaminam Paripurna Krupa Kataksha Siddhihi Astu Tadhastu Ayam Dharmaha Uttarotram Nabhiruddhirastu Tadhastu Sarvam Bhagavan Sri Nityananda Paramashiva Padukarpanamastu Om Nityanandam. Thank you. Chant.
And it is now time, thank you. It is now time for our invocation, and our Pledge of Allegiance. I'm sorry, I'm going backwards on the agenda, not forward. Our Pledge of Allegiance, and it will be led tonight by Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Madam City Clerk, if I could have the roll call.
I would like to state for the record that Mayor Dutre has been excused and will not be in attendance at tonight's meeting. Councilmember Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
I'm here.
And Mayor Pro Tem Roop.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item of business would be presentations. The Chamber of Commerce presentation for Police Officer of the Year and Annual Achievement Award. I will introduce past Chamber of Commerce Chair Tim Welborn.
Maybe a little bit. Wait. We'll just go. All right. Members of the council, thank you for this opportunity on behalf of the Montclair Chamber of Commerce. As you well know, normally this event is held in a luncheon that we hold annually in May, where we honor two fine officers from the Montclair Police Department. And so this is Of course, due to the pandemic, we were not able to this year, and so this is our first opportunity to give some honor to some well-deserved individuals. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Chief Avels, and he will give us a description of our first honoree, the Officer of the Year, Miguel Huerta.
Thank you. The first one I'm going to do tonight is Officer of the Year, so if I could get Officer Miguel Huerta to come up to the front. For everybody to see. So Officer Huerta began his career with the Montclair Police Department on January 16th, 2017. He's currently assigned to narcotics investigations. He is also a department's firearms instructor, a taser instructor, and a member of the mobile field force. While he was in patrol, he was also one of our newest field training officers. In March of 2020, an armed robber entered a local business and held 2 clerks at gunpoint. The suspect locked the front door and forced the clerks to the back of the office. Once in the office, the suspect made them open the safe, and after taking all the money from the safe, the suspect fled in an awaiting vehicle. A neighboring business had surveillance cameras that captured images of the suspect vehicle, but did not show the vehicle's license plate completely. The traumatized victims were only able to provide us with a few digits of the license plate. A Be on the Lookout flyer was distributed to patrol with little information. Officer Huerta saw the flyer and took the initiative to conduct a computer search of the partial plate. He systematically entered variations of the license plate and eventually found a possible match. The potential match had a release of liability to a business in Fullerton. Officer Huerta contacted the business and learned the vehicle was auctioned to a private buyer. He requested the buyer's information and through the use of multiple law enforcement resources, discovered the buyer matched the suspect's physical description and was on parole for robbery. After finding an address for the potential suspect in the city of Norco, Officer Huerta contacted the Riverside County Sheriff's Department and asked them to drive by the address. Deputies found the suspect vehicle parked in front of the residence and, at Huerta's request, took pictures of the vehicle. He compared these pictures from the surveillance video and confirmed it was the same vehicle by its unique features. At this point, he informed detectives of his investigation, and a few days later, he assisted them in a search warrant of the suspect's home. During the search, detectives located the suspect vehicle, and a replica firearm used in the crime. The suspect ultimately confessed to the crime and identified the getaway driver. The most impressive part of this story is that Officer Huerta did all of this while still on patrol. Another example of Officer Huerta's outstanding work ethic and investigative skill involved a gang-motivated attempted murder that took place in this last November of 2020. Officer Huerta was dispatched to a call of a 16-year-old who had just been shot while he was talking with his friends in the alley behind their home. Initially, the victim and the witness were reluctant to provide any information out of fear, and it appeared that the investigation was going to stall. Because Huerta made a point to regularly contact local gang members while on patrol, he had a keen awareness of the gang culture and key members. He used this knowledge to quickly identify one of the people in the group that was a local gang member and most likely the intended target. He also realized this person would probably not talk to him because of his frequent contact with members of this gang that often resulted in arrests by Officer Huerta. Huerta made the correct but difficult decision to have an assisting officer interview this subject in hopes that he would speak to them. While this was happening, he interviewed another victim who would only provide him with a vague area of that the suspects frequented. Using law enforcement resources, Huerta searched for contacts in that area. Through a process of elimination, he developed a few potential suspects who matched the shooter's description. He also discovered the victim might have known the shooter. He confronted the victim, who admitted to knowing the suspect, but by only his gang moniker. Huerta also determined the shooter was a minor, so there was limited records and photographs of him. Undeterred, Huerta continued digging and eventually identified the suspect through social media accounts. Later that morning, detectives arrested the suspect and served a search warrant at his house. They recovered gang paraphernalia, a pistol, and identified his accomplice. Officer Huerta's determination and investigative efforts solved this crime in one day and resulted in the arrest of a violent felon, along with the filing of attempted murder charges with gang enhancements. These are just two examples of Officer Huerta's dedication to providing the citizens of Montclair with a safer place to live. The effort he put into these investigations truly exhibited a work ethic that does not go unnoticed, nor does the positive impact he made on the lives of the victims and the safety of our community. Please join me in congratulating Officer Huerta.
And we do have some certificates here. I'd like my colleagues to join me and our wonderful field reps out there. And if each of, I know we have from Senator Leyva and from Assemblymember Rodriguez. And if you'll join us down here and give out the certificates with us. Thank you. I'm going to be doing this for the city, so do you want to do Hackman's? Sure. You have a good relationship.
My name is Maria Arias. I'm here representing Senator Connie Leyva's office, and on her behalf, I would like to present the certificate for 2020 Police Officer of the Year for a well-deserved award. Last year, as we all know, we had a very hard year. The residents of the city of Montclair have a great hero on you because you did your job and you protect them when they need it the most. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Scott Peltzman. I'm here on behalf of Assemblymember Rodriguez. I already handed over the certificate, but on behalf of the 52nd Assembly District and the California State Assembly, thank you for your service, and congratulations on being recognized as Officer of the Year.
On behalf of County Supervisor Kurt Hagman, I want to wish you congratulations. We commend and thank you for your selfless acts and commitment to public service and community safety. We wish you congratulations and continued success. Supervisor Kurt Hagman. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
And if the remainder of, we do have all our colleagues here. And on behalf of the entire city of Montclair, all those who call this city home, whether it's just during business hours or whether it's where you live, all of our city staff, our council, our commissioners, Officer Huerta, we really want to thank you for your outstanding service and what you've done. You stand as a benchmark for all those who follow you. On behalf of our city, congratulations. Tim, you get it?
Officer Tejas, you want to come closer and take a photo? We could just all stay up here as you present.
right. So last but certainly not least is our 2020 Montclair Police Department Annual Achievement Award winner, Officer Mark Robles. Mark? Officer Robles was selected for this award due to his contributions to the department and the community through his participation of the social media team. The department started a social media platform late in 2019, and Officer Robles' participation on the team was an ancillary duty in addition to his regular assignment as a patrol officer. He demonstrated his ability to function simultaneously in patrol while finding the time to produce excellent content to be posted on our social media platforms. Social media industry experts say the success of starting a social media team is often dependent on a person or people willing to step up out of the norm and take on the responsibility of posting content, which may be uncomfortable, especially for those in law enforcement. Officer Robles has proven to be one of those rare employees posting not only newsworthy events, but embrace the technology and contemporary issues, humor, and language to build our platform. In just over a year, the success of the social media team has been paramount in connecting with the community. Any reservations or concerns about opening a two-way forum to the public and possibly the most difficult year for law enforcement in recent history were immediately absent once the program was launched. It is our belief this is largely due to Officer Robles' use of humor, graphics, subject matter, and photos and videos which showed our community the humanistic and compassionate side of law enforcement. With little or mostly no direction, Officer Robles has been able to post engaging videos, answer questions for the public, and gain multiple positive comments, followers, and input from the public. Some of our posts have also identified several criminal suspects when members of the public would message us identifying those terrorizing our city's residents and businesses. At times, it would be necessary to contact Officer Robles when off duty to publish social media information was needed, which he did so without complaint. This is especially appreciated when balancing spending precious time with a growing family as well as completing duties for the department. The city council members and members of city executive staff have expressed appreciation as well as the manner in which the information has been presented. Officer Robles has demonstrated his unwavering commitment to service to the community and is the 2020 recipient of the Montclair Police Department's Annual Achievement Award. Please join me in congratulating Officer Robles. Got your award right there.
On behalf of the Montclair Chamber of Commerce, we congratulate you on your Annual Achievement Award. Very much for what you do in the community.
On behalf of Assemblymember Freddie Rodriguez and the 52nd Assembly District, I'm honored to congratulate you on being recognized by the Montclair Chamber and being the recipient of the Montclair Police Annual Achievement Award.
On behalf of State Senator Connie Leva and the California State Senate, I would like to recognize you by providing a certificate of recognition for the 2020 Police Annual Achievement Award. And thank you for your service and great job. Thank you.
Officer Robles, so did you do the TikTok video with the Fleetwood Mac theme song? Were you responsible for that, you and Jaxo? Very cool, very cool. Way to stay hip and keep it relative to the millennial generation. On behalf of County Supervisor Kurt Hagman that represents our city, this is a certificate of recognition. We commend and thank you for your selfless acts and commitment to public service and community safety. We wish you continued success. Congratulations. Signed, I was going to call him Assemblyman, Supervisor Kurt Hagman.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All of our colleagues together. Officer, what you do is truly outstanding. This achievement award is something in recognition by your peers. No matter where we are in life, some of the greatest recognition comes from our peers. Those who look at us and say, you are an outstanding person. You stand above us. And I know everybody in this community, not just those in this room, not just the council, not just our city staff, but the residents, the businesses, and even those who just drive through this city, owe a debt of gratitude for all that you do. On behalf of everyone who calls Montclair a piece of themselves, we want to give you this certificate of recognition for everything you've done. Thank you. Thank you. All right, that brings us to the public comment portion of our meeting this evening. Madam City Clerk, do we have any members of the public in attendance here in the audience who would like to speak to us this evening?
Well, the first request I received was from Matt Muncy, and I'm not sure, is he here?
Oh.
Okay.
Welcome, Mr. Munson. You have 5 minutes.
Check 1, 2. Oh, that works. You guys can hear me? Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here today in support of our city's Pride Month recognition. It's wonderful to see that we finally joined in the Pride celebration this year with the beautiful display at City Hall. And this symbolic support of the age-old fight for equal rights for every human being, our city did right. All the people of Montclair should feel welcomed, valued, and included as a part of our community. That's the kind of town I want to be a part of. In openly celebrating Pride Month, our city made a great symbolic gesture. But symbols are meaningless without substance, without consistent action, and words that transform those symbols into real progress. Earlier this month, I cringed when I listened to a council meeting. I was saddened by the ignorant remarks by a Montclair resident. This person was so offended by this display and the windows that they felt moved to speak to you guys, speak out against it. And while I wholeheartedly disagree with them, I do respect the right to free speech. So that's what I'm here to practice tonight. As a long-standing citizen and educator in Montclair, I completely reject the sentiments shared by this resident. They couldn't be more wrong. This attitude of hate, exclusion, and unsolicited harmful rhetoric is not welcome in our city. We love, support, and accept everyone in Montclair. And any person who said otherwise needs to be met with voices that only preach love and acceptance. And while this person's words are harmful, They don't nearly deliver the blow that those in power can punch. Sadly, the attitude expressed weeks ago at this podium is shared by one of our city council members. The belief and the words of our leaders are incredibly powerful in both practice and public influence. If a city council member argues against legislation for the equal rights of LGBTQ+ individuals in front of California judiciary committees while possessing a vault of homophobic social media posts, his office might empower some citizens to feel validated in spewing hate against pride celebrations at city council meetings. Or worse, he might actually inspire legislation that hurts our citizens. I'll end with 2 commitments as a Montclair resident that I hope others will join in. Number 1, if you are a member of the LGBTQ community, you are welcome here in Montclair. You are loved and valued and appreciated. If you are a young person, our schools are filled with safe spaces for you. We want you to know that we love you for exactly who you are. We celebrate you and we see you. And the voices that spew hate will simply be outnumbered and unwelcome here in our town and in our schools. And the second commitment is, if you are an elected official in this city and you cannot commit, both in word and action, to protecting the rights of all of our citizens, especially those who have had to fight historic and current oppression, if you cannot commit in your platform that you will act in the interest of all of your constituents, regardless of sexuality or gender or race or otherwise anything, we have no business, you have no business holding your office. We are looking for representatives, and you don't represent all of us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, do we have anyone online or via Zoom?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we're having some sound issues with Zoom, and IT suggested that we dial in via teleconference from
Okay.
the council chambers so that the audio can be routed through that way. So would you mind if I tried that right now before we
That's-
move on to our next commenter?
No, that's fine.
Okay, we do have at least one more person who's going to speak here in the council chambers, but I don't think we'll be able to hear anyone on Zoom without, or they won't be able to hear us.
So we have one more person who wishes to speak in person.
Yes.
Okay. And I appreciate everybody bearing with us as we deal with our technology issues.
Okay, so we can be heard now via Zoom? Okay, so I think we can go forward, and this workaround might work for now. So let's get the,
We'll go forward with the individuals who are here in person.
yes. Okay, so our next speaker is, okay, Gina Howerton.
Welcome, Ms. Howerton.
Good evening. I'd just like to address a couple of things tonight. The traffic light that's on Kingsley and Monte Vista that goes east and west is extremely long in the morning, and there's no traffic going north and south. I was wondering if there's any way that can be like timed out or something to find out if we can maybe get that a little bit quicker. Because I mean, I've sat there for 8 to 10 minutes with no traffic, just waiting for the light. So I've actually made a right and then gone down and come back around just so I can get myself back to where I need to be. And then the last thing is I have not been able to attend any in-person council meetings since the November election due to the quarantine. But tonight, I'd like to address an issue that occurred during the campaign while I was on social media, actually talking about the LGBT community. I was accused of not being a resident of Montclair, of being a homophobic, and of being an outside instigator by one of your sitting council members. So tonight, I'd like to introduce myself. Ms. Martinez, my name is Gina Howerton, and I've lived in this city for 35 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Howerton. Does that conclude our speakers?
I just need to pull up the meeting list.
And while she's doing that, and I don't know if we can actually act on it tonight, but would it be possible for someone from staff to look into the lights that Ms. Howerton spoke about and maybe get back to her? Because I too noticed the lights are very long in some intersections.
Yes, I will have the Public Works Director look into that.
And Ms. Howerton, if you could maybe, after the meeting or at some point, provide your contact information to Ms. Myrick, our city clerk. And this way we have that so we can get in touch with you on that issue.
Okay, and I see that we do have a raised hand on Zoom. Steve Scalzillo. Okay, Steve, are you there?
Yeah, I was just letting you know about the sound problem, so I'm okay now.
Okay, thank you.
And so we make sure everybody is heard. Are there any other attendees via Zoom or teleconference who wish to speak?
I don't see any raised hands, so I think that was it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that brings us to item number 7, public hearings. Consider setting a public hearing for Monday, July 19th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers and continuing review and consideration of resolution number 21-3311, approving tentative tract map 20384 to create 20 industrial condominiums at 10680 Silicon Avenue within the M1 Limited Manufacturing Zone in the city of Montclair. And I will open the public hearing.
So Mayor Pro Tem Rue, city staff recommends that this item, as you already indicated, be continued and that you accept any public comment from the public this evening and then continue the item until the meeting of July 19th at 7 p.m. in the council chambers.
Do we have any public that wishes to speak on this, either in person or via electronic media?
I received no requests to speak in
Okay.
advance, and I do not see any raised hands on Zoom.
Okay. Then I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for any questions they may have, and when ready for a motion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move for to consider this public hearing to Monday, July 19th at 7 p.m. here in the council chambers.
It has been moved by Councilmember Johnson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Lopez. All in favor, make your vote on the screen. The motion passes 4-0. And that item will be continued to Monday, July 19th, 2021, here in the council chambers. That brings us to item number 8, consent calendar. We will go down the list. I don't know if any council member wishes to pull something. I will start with item number B11. I just have a question on that. I will start on my left, your right in the audience. Councilmember Martinez, do you wish to pull anything?
Not today, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Johnson?
Yes, sir. I also wanted to talk about B11 and also C1.
B1.
Yeah, B11 and C like Charles 1.
Oh, okay. Councilmember Lopez?
I actually had several, but I can probably get my answers addressed, and I'd be comfortable approving those. I want to pull items C4, C7, and C8.
Just a moment. C4, C4, C7, C8.
And just
Okay.
a point, before we vote on the remainder, regarding item B, like bully 12, Mr. City Manager, if we, afterwards, if you can give me just the brief background and history, we don't have to do it here at council. I was a little confused, but I'm comfortable with the whole thing, but I just wanted clarification after the fact, but I intend to vote for the measure.
Okay, that brings us to a consent calendar. I would ask for approval. Do the consent calendar without these items, then bring them back separately?
Yes.
That's what I thought. I want to make sure. Then I would ask a motion for remainder of the consent calendar. Item number B as in boy 11 has been pulled. C as in cat 1 has been pulled. C as in cat 4, C as in cat 7, and C as in cat 8. So do we have a motion for the remainder of the consent calendar?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move that the adoption of the consent calendar as presented without the pulled items.
I'll second.
It has been motioned by Councilmember Lopez, a second by Councilmember Johnson. All in favor indicate by voting. Item passes 4-0. That brings us to the first item, B11. I pulled this. I know I had a question, and Councilmember Johnson indicated she had a question. The question I have might be for the chief. Are we planning to do, and this is using $5,500 in state asset forfeiture funds to host the 2021 National Night Out? Do we, I know we're kind of into that time frame already, do we have a time when we might be doing it, a date?
It's actually going to occur on August 3rd. That's the regular date for National Night Out.
Right. August 3rd, and where will it be, in our park?
In Hoffman Park, yes.
Okay.
And we'll be hosting it with a few vendors, some food vendors, and also a movie in the park. They're actually, I was going to bring it to the first council meeting in July, but that got canceled. So I was going to talk about it at the last meeting in July. I do have a flyer here already, just in case I got asked questions tonight. But we'll be doing hot dogs. I believe it's going to be JoJo Grill.
Sure.
That'll be coming out as they've done in a previous year. They'll be coming out this year. They're doing photo booths. They're going to have the Sweet and Snowy again, like we've done in the past, and then the movie in the park. This time it's going to be Frozen 2. We did specifically choose that video because, one, it is a good video, but two, it's a little bit shorter because, as you know, sometimes the National Night Out goes a little lengthy
Right.
into the evening, and a lot of parents are trying to get their kids back home. Not certain if all of them will be going back to school that very next day, but some are have a tendency to have to go back to school that very next day, and it sometimes puts a little stress on that with the parents. Hopefully, we'll be able to get it done a little bit quicker than we have in the years past, but I think it'll be a great event. I think a lot of the public is looking forward to coming out again and getting back into the swing of things. The asset forfeiture for this agenda is also going towards another purchase of another movie license that's likely to be at a movie in the park leading up to the National Night Out event as well. So.
Great. Anything we can do to get some of our families out and together again is positive. And if we
Yes.
can have positive interactions with our police department and all of those in the city, it's even better. Councilmember Johnson, you had a question as well.
Yes, I just want to make sure that I'm on track. I was talking to one of our residents about this upcoming event, and what I told her, I hope I told her the truth, what I told her is that the police and fire officers would be there, and there would be vehicles for the children to explore. Is that accurate?
Yes, that should
Excellent.
be accurate. We are
Okay.
going to do our very best, though, to still try to create a social distancing atmosphere, really trying to still extend that safety to the community. So it's going to be a little bit more spread out this year. We're going to do our very best with that. We are going to ask that the families try to stick together with each other when they sit down and they watch the movie and everything, so we can try to still provide that measure of safety to the community.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chief. We look forward to that and getting that out in the public. Item number C1, which is consider approval of agreement 21-22 with Consolidated Fire Agencies of San Bernardino County for continued dispatch and communication services. I believe, Councilmember Johnson?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, you pulled that item.
Yes, I did. I just have a clarification question about process. So if I read the report correctly, for this dispatch is only for fire, but my question is, if a person calls 911, then it sounds like if it's somebody's breaking in the house, the call goes one place, and if the house is on fire, the call goes someplace else. Did I understand that correctly?
No.
Okay, please clarify for me.
If you call 911, it always goes to the police dispatch center first. It never goes directly to any fire dispatch, at least here
Okay.
in the local agencies. It'll come to us first. When we recognize the nature of the emergency, we immediately transfer it to the appropriate agency, even if it's say it is a law enforcement emergency, but it's not in our jurisdiction, but because of cell phone connectivity or what have you, it actually comes to us. We will then transfer it to that appropriate agency. But what we do is we remain on the line in case there's any interruptions or disconnects, or if there's any other need for law enforcement to respond. So even though it might be a fire incident, we're typically going to respond to those as well. But other medical emergencies, we don't just pass it off to Con Fire to dispatch paramedic services. The police department will remain on the line, gather that information, and then we will likely send personnel to the scene as well.
Well, I am much more comforted now because I thought you'd call 911 and they'd say, press 1 if there's a burglar. Press 2 if your house is on fire, and I was hoping that was not the case.
That would be very interesting, and no, that's not the case.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Okay, that brings us to, and that answers all your questions?
That answers all my questions.
Okay, that brings us to item number C4, consider approval of agreement number 21-29, a memorandum of understanding with the Montclair Firefighters Association for the period of 1 July 2021 to 30 June 2026. I believe Councilman Lopez?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Now that it's before us publicly, I can make some comments. I am pleased to see the agreement before us. I am pleased to see that the agreement before us is longer than just a one-year agreement, as has been the case in prior MOUs with our fire department. I think long-term agreements serve us best, whether they be 2 years or 5. In this case, it's 5. I would say that I would hope that in the course of 5 years, let's say that in year 2 or 2.5, year 3, if we find ourselves, at least from my perspective, in a predicament where we could lose firemen to other agencies because of competitive salaries that are higher than ours, I would hope that we can go back to the drawing table from both parties mutually and negotiate something further, but that's just my desire. I am pleased with this. I will say that I am frustrated to hear from other agencies that when it comes to Montclair and when they do their salary surveys, many of them drop Montclair from consideration because we are low in some circumstances. And I think that's unfortunate. I get it that we're a small city, but nonetheless, we have to retain experienced, quality guys and guys that know our city, know the neighborhoods, know our residents. It's best to have longevity and end the revolving door at the fire department, and PD too, but that's coming. I do want to make a motion on the agreement, but it is to amend it in one regard. On Article 12, page 1 of the agreement regarding holidays, I think it would be incumbent upon us to include the new holiday that is federally recognized, and that would be Juneteenth. It is a holiday on par with MLK Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July, et cetera. So I'd like to see, or I'll make a formal motion that the MOU before us is approved with the proviso that the holiday Juneteenth is added to the list of paid holidays at a rate of 15.73 hours earned for those that are shift employees and 10 hours earned that are non-shift employees.
This is a question for the personnel or city manager. Because that's a new holiday, would that not automatically be rolled into every agreement?
No, it has to be negotiated. Each of the bargaining groups have to negotiate for each one of the holidays. This agreement is before the council to consider tonight. It is not in the place of the council to negotiate on behalf of a labor group.
Right.
And that would fall basically under that category of negotiating on behalf of that group, particularly a group that has already concluded negotiations. So I understand that there's a desire perhaps to incorporate that day off for members of the bargaining groups, but they do have to represent it themselves, and no group has asked for it at this point in time.
That said, the document in question in those negotiations, however, happened before even the concept and the reality of the holiday was created. I mean, we're only maybe 4 days into it, if I'm not mistaken. I just think it would be fair for us to include it in all recognized holidays going forward, irregardless of the bargaining unit or the group of employees that we have before us.
Well, you know, Juneteenth, the holiday has actually been in discussion in Congress for a number of years, and there was a lot of discussion in the last several months that it would be forthcoming, and it was very likely that it would be approved. So the bargaining group should have had an understanding that it was a holiday. However, if other bargaining groups do ask for it to be incorporated, and the city council wants us to extend it to all of the bargaining groups, if that is part of ongoing negotiations, we can certainly bring it back before the city council.
I would think that would be the better way to do it, because then we are winding up negotiating this. If we put this in now, then we have to have each bargaining group come before us to do this. I think,
Well, if you do it now, you're giving it to all the other bargaining groups effectively, without them negotiating for it.
okay.
And it's not,
I was planning on
it's
taking
not
all
in the
these-
agenda, it's not part of
Right,
the
that's what I'm
discussion for
just-
this evening, so it really isn't an item that's up for debate. It would have to be brought back
So
to the
could
city
we bring
council
this back
anyway.
to the city council?
Yes, it could be brought back to the city council that the holiday has been passed at the federal level, and is it the city council's desire to provide this holiday to all of the bargaining groups? However, again, I want to caution that the purposes of labor negotiations is a give and take, and there is value to giving this holiday to employees, and in giving that, you want to negotiate other terms relative to the negotiation process that's occurring. So it wouldn't be my recommendation that we pursue it that way. I think that you should provide staff the opportunity to use it as a labor negotiation tool. And then if it's something that you want to extend to the Firefighters Association, we can bring it back after we complete negotiations with the other bargaining groups. Because as I've said, it does have value.
Yes.
And perhaps there's a value connection that can be made to granting that holiday to the MFFA bargaining group.
So, first of all, I had planned to do all these items in one motion. If we're going to do an individual motion on each one, then I'll have to start back with B11 and go back through them. As a point of order, Madam City Clerk, would you recommend we take all of these pulled items as one or individually?
I would say individually.
So, okay, so we need to go back to B1 and
B11.
C1.
Yeah, B11.
B11. And then we will do C4, then C7, and C8. We have C4 before us. I'll go back to the other two. Mr. City Manager, what would be the best course of action? For us to amend this tonight, which is not on the agenda, and we can only move forward on an agenda with what's before the public. So we could approve this tonight and then bring back before us the amendment put forward by Councilmember Lopez.
Well, again, my preference would be that you allow staff to continue the negotiating process with the other bargaining groups. If the other bargaining groups do not request it as a holiday, then it would not be incorporated into their MOUs. And at that point in time, I don't know that I would want to come back and bring it to a council as a special item just for the MFFA bargaining group. I think now that it's been made an issue at this evening's meeting, the other bargaining groups will add it to their list of items to request. And if the city council, through the labor negotiation process, wants to approve that holiday for the other bargaining groups, then we would at that time bring back an agenda item to the city council asking that you add that to the MFFA bargaining group.
Okay. So what you're suggesting then, well,
You allow this to remain in abeyance and allow staff to negotiate with the other bargaining groups. And we can certainly represent the holiday to them. I think that I'm understanding from the council that you want to give it to them. We, as the management negotiating team, can represent it to the bargaining groups. But again, it does have value, and I want to use it in the sense of negotiations because it has value. And then we can bring it back to the city council for each one of those bargaining groups and add it to the MFFA bargaining group.
okay. So we would essentially, if I'm correct, I'll get to Councilmember Lopez in a moment. We would approve this tonight as presented and come back in the future.
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Lopez.
A couple questions. Just piggybacking on the last statement by the Mayor Pro Tem. We approve this tonight and then move forward. If we approve this tonight, the terms of this agreement are for 5 years.
Yes.
At what point do we entertain the recognition of the Juneteenth holiday with respect to this MOU? At the end of that 5th year?
Well, no, if we're going to grant it to the other bargaining groups effective in 2022, it would be my recommendation that it be granted to MFFA effective 2022 as well.
Do it as a supplemental or an amendment? Now, okay, I will then withdraw that motion, although it's dead, it didn't get a second. But, and I would, I just would state that if we don't, regardless of what bargaining group is before us tonight, if we don't acknowledge and grant employees that holiday, I think we're going to take a lot of heat from the public and the press, given its significance, especially with its prevalence in the press over the past weekend. I think it's justified. But nonetheless, I will withdraw my motion, and I will move that the item before us, the MOU with the Montclair Firefighters Association, I know I'm not being too technical, the approval of agreement number 21-29, a memorandum of understanding with the Montclair Firefighters Association for the period of July 1, 2021 to June 30, 2026, be approved as presented.
And Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, before you vote, I would just like to clarify for the record that the holidays are not consistent amongst all the bargaining groups. They negotiate for holidays, and sometimes they give up holidays in exchange for something else. So if you look at the different MOUs, you will see an inconsistency in the holidays. So for example, the Police Officers Association still has retained Columbus Day as a holiday, but none of the other bargaining groups have Columbus Day as a holiday any longer because they sacrifice it for other reasons. And so the history of negotiations is an important part of the labor negotiation process, which is typically why we don't negotiate on behalf of the bargaining group. They have to ask for the things that they want. And in doing so, they either give up something or they ask for a modification for something if something is particularly important. So that is generally why we would not recommend this particular course of action, that we leave it up to the bargaining groups to negotiate those types of working conditions, simply because there are other issues related to their specific contracts that we have to take into consideration during the negotiation process.
Okay. There has been a motion
I'll
But-
second.
by Councilmember Lopez. Is there a second?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, I'll second Councilmember
Has A
Lopez's.
second by Councilmember Johnson. And then the vote will proceed, and I will go back to the other two items.
May I clarify, Mayor Pro Tem Rue, we are voting on the matter as presented?
Yes.
We're voting on C4 at this time.
Before, as presented in total here, and then in the future, if the bargaining group wants this holiday, and it is an important holiday, but it's up to each bargaining group to make that, something will be brought forward to us in the future.
Okay. I'd just like to ask, could we do B11 first,
Okay.
so we're in order? We need a motion and a second for that
Aye.
one.
I was going to try to do them all in one, but that's okay. The first item is B11, consider authorizing the use of $5,500 in state asset forfeiture funds to host the 2021 National Night Out event. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
A motion by Councilmember Lopez. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second by Councilmember Martinez.
B11.
Motion 4, yes. Motion passes. That brings us to item number C1, consider approval of agreement number 21-22 with Consolidated Fire Agencies of San Bernardino County for continued dispatch and communication services. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I pulled that item, and I will motion for approval of agreement number 21-22 with Consolidated Fire Agencies of San Bernardino County for continued dispatch and communication services.
A motion has been made by Councilmember Johnson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Martinez. All in favor indicate, or please vote. Four yes, and the motion passes. That brings us to item number C4. Consider approval of agreement number 21-29, a memorandum of understanding with Montclair Firefighters Association at the period of July 1st, 2021 to July 30th, 2026. We need a motion and a second.
You had one, Mr. Mayor, myself and Ms. Johnson.
Motion by Councilmember Lopez. Is there a second?
Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll second.
And a second by Councilmember Johnson. All those in favor, all those please. No, I pushed yes.
Okay, let me start this one over.
This is our new system. This is only about the third time we've used it, so. There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Motion carries 4-0. That brings us to item number C as in cat 7, consider approval of agreement number 21-35, amending the agreement 21-79 with EPT Design Services for the Reeder Ranch Park project. Councilman Lopez, you brought this forward.
I did, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Staff, Mr. Starr and staff, maybe the two items can go hand in hand. I had questions about both. In the staff report, and I believe it was in item C7, it stated that there were some increased consulting fees required because of services, extra services that were necessary. Is it regarding the design and what we were requiring for the park? Was it our asking for changes to be made that requested those prices go, or not, the billing go up?
Yes, you are correct. It was during the review design process, and during that process, staff determined that some additional features needed to be added to make this park more open and comprehensive to better serve the public. And in that regard, it went beyond the original proposal with EPT Design, and that is what engendering the request for additional compensation.
So in the original contract, was there discussion, because I hadn't seen it, the original contract, unless that's it before the map. I focused heavily on the map. How much give and take was there in the contract? Is it just, because I know sometimes there is a review process of back and forth about, even with development plans, they can change hands 2 or 3 times before then they start billing, and it's deemed excessive. Was there such terms as that in this agreement?
Well, in this particular process, and this is unique because this was using funds provided by the state of California for development of a park, so we received a grant. And the grants have specific requirements, and you cannot exceed the restrictions that are in the grant. So for each phase of the project, in this particular case, we're talking about the design phase. And we were authorized to hire a consultant to assist with the design of the park. And within that design concept, the grant authorized specific components that could be part of that design element. But during the process, we found as staff that additional things needed to be added to the park to make it more user-friendly and to serve the longer goal purpose of the park and its association with the Reeder Ranch. So when the city took over the foundation, the city had an agreement with the foundation that it would provide the necessary facilities for the foundation to meet. The original design for this project via the state did not take that into consideration because the state wasn't concerned with the relationship that the city had with the foundation. But in the discussion with ETP Design, it was our determination that we needed to add components to the park that would allow an area for the foundation to meet, as well as for us to have additional storage area for the Human Services Department to actually serve the public better. And in doing that, we had to expand what we were asking ETP Design to do, and we had to get authorization from the state to do those amendments, which were beyond what the council originally approved. So that is what we're looking at right now to pay for those additional services that we asked for.
And then dovetailing into item 8, where I'm thrown off is the allocation of $8,500 from CDBG funds. I was under the impression at a prior council meeting back around February of this year, when we made an allocation of CDBG funds to the Reeder Ranch Foundation, that they had basically exhausted all avenues of gaining additional funds. Weren't those funds that we've allocated in the past to serve purposes such as the one required of item 8?
The CDBG allocations were to the city so that the city could do renovations to the Reeder Ranch, not to the foundation. So the foundation had nothing to do with the allocation of funds from CDBG. And at last time that it was brought before the city council, it was to do the painting of the house, to do barn improvements, and to do ADA improvements. But in order to make all of this work together, both the park as well as the Reeder Ranch site itself, we needed to develop a master plan for the Reeder Ranch. And CDBG actually came forward and said that they would be willing to fund the additional requirement to do the master plan. So this was actually CDBG, based on a request from us to them, that they agreed to come up with the additional funding that would allow us to go forward with the development of the master plan. We feel that it's important to do the master plan development for Reeder Ranch at the same time that we're doing the park development. And we need to do the two hand in hand so that when we actually go forward with the construction, we can get a better bid deal on doing both the park and the improvements to Reeder Ranch at the same time.
So the $8,500 would in effect kill two birds with one stone, you're saying?
Yeah, well, it will certainly for the development of the master plan so that it can go hand in hand with the Reeder
Okay.
Park, yes.
I appreciate the clarification. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, sir.
Does that answer your question, council member?
It does, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. With that, I will move both item C7 and C8.
I think
C7
they have to be done individually, correct, Madam
Individually?
City Clerk?
for legality purposes.
They don't.
They can be done together.
All right.
Okay.
I move item C7 and C8, consider approval agreement 21-35, and consider amending the 2019 through 2024 capital improvement program, adding the Reeder Ranch master plan.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez. Is there a second?
A second?
Second by Councilmember Martinez. All in favor? Or please indicate your vote.
Pretend that says 7 and 8.
Yes.
And the vote is 4-0, so the item passes. That brings us to item number 10, Council and Montclair Housing Corporation Workshop, a fiscal year 2021 to 2022 preliminary budget review. The council may consider this item at an adjourned meeting of Monday, June 28, 2021 at 6 p.m. That brings us to communications, number 11. No department reports. Madam City Attorney, a request to meet in closed session.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. There's two items requested for closed session. The first one is to meet with Mr. Starr, designated labor negotiator, regarding the employee associations listed. And the second one is to meet in closed session regarding, excuse me, real property negotiations involving the property and negotiators indicated. Other than those two items this evening, I have nothing further.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. That brings us to item number C, City Manager.
I just wanted to let you know that the vaccination clinic at the Trans Center is being discontinued. We are working with them to try to get them to move back into get the county to move back into the kids station where it's air conditioned. The reason they canceled is because it was outdoors and the temperature is getting rather hot, and they decided that they could no longer work outdoors in the heat. Although we did originally offer the kids station to the county for the delivery of vaccinations to the public at that location, so we're hoping that they will now take us up into consideration on that particular usage.
Thank you. That brings us to Mayor Pro Tem notices. Notice of cancellation of our July 6th City Council meeting. Item number 2, a special meeting of the City Council of the Montclair Housing Corporation Board at 6 p.m. in the City Council chambers to consider adoption of the City and Montclair Housing Corporation budgets and to consider appointments to the Planning and Community Activities Commission. That brings us to communication from the council. I will start and then, let's see, I'm trying to think how we went last time, then go to my right, your left, then my left, your right, and on down with, ending with, or concluding with Councilmember Martinez. We have heard quite a bit recently about Juneteenth. Many people have known about this. I know I learned about it in junior high school. It is the day the Emancipation Proclamation was proclaimed throughout the land and freed the slaves. An important holiday for all of us as Americans. I know Pomona has just completed their 33rd Juneteenth celebration. I have attended at other times in the past, was unable to make it this year. I was thinking if maybe there's a way in the future we could do some type of a recognition on Juneteenth. Pomona is the big celebration, and certainly we appreciate the regional significance of that, just as in Ontario at 4th of July is the big 4th of July parade. Won't happen this year, but has been in the past. And I'm finding, I've made some calls on different things, but I'm wondering if it might not be possible when we start to move forward planning our Country Fair Jamboree, which is usually in June, if we couldn't maybe tie something in. It won't be necessarily on that date, but we can certainly tie something in. This way, we're not taking away from the regional significance in Pomona, and we're still recognizing something that's certainly important to every resident of this city. And it's just for the future. I know we can't do anything about it tonight. It's just a thought. On June 17th, I attended the memorial service for Hollis Judkins. Hollis served on our Community Activities Commission, then Community Action Commission, for many, many years. Pastor Vicki Brobeck did the service. Officer Rob Pipersky represented Esther Vargas Pipersky and gave some wonderful, Esther could not be there. She was not feeling well that day, and gave some wonderful words on the life of Hollis. And I was able to represent the city, our city council, commissions, our residents, and say some words on behalf of the city for a lady who really gave a tremendous amount of her time and effort to this city. She lived and breathed the city of Montclair, the CAC, and the Senior Citizens Center, and she certainly will be greatly missed. The next item and our chief is here, I want to thank him for the tremendous work with the incident on Kingsley and the explosives in the car. I appreciate his work. I know the Ontario Bomb Squad assisted. At this time, it looks as if nothing ultra dramatic, which is good. It seems a little bit less than what we thought it was that day. This is positive, and I appreciate your good work on that. I also want to thank, there's 4 agencies involved in this who worked, the law enforcement agencies, to find the suspects in the killing of little Aiden Leos. He was the little boy killed on the freeway. Orange County, Riverside County, Los Angeles County, and San Bernardino County law enforcement worked together to help find these suspects. That's the type of cooperation that goes on. And if I know what I've read in the paper, they really appreciated the efforts by San Bernardino County Sheriff in the work on this. So, Chief, next time you see the sheriff or any of those law enforcement agencies, please, on behalf of our city, tell them we appreciate the work. This little boy did not live here, but it was a tragedy that we all felt. I recently was I go to different things for different aspects of my life, and it was a talk on housing, and an elected official said, well, he wants to have housing incentivized because affordable housing is a drain on city services for 20 to 40 years. It's not. Statistics show lower income people tend to use less public services or fewer public services than the well-to-do. Our working class families shouldn't be looked at as a drain on services. They should be looked at the contributing members of society that they are. That's just, I won't say who it is or where it is, but that's it. There's a piece of legislation, SB 519. SB 519 has already passed through the Senate. SB 519 would allow the personal possession of psychedelic drugs. We're talking about LSD and some of those. They're saying this is needed because there are people with emotional and mental illnesses such as schizophrenia that need this. Well, that may be true, but we have psychotropic drugs out there that are given under the care of a medical professional, and they're severely limited. This would allow anyone who wants to possess these drugs. Some of you who may be of a certain era or history buffs will remember what happened in the 60s where so many people were involved with LSD, and there was the famous story of the entertainer Art Linkletter, and his daughter jumped out I think it was 14th story of an apartment building she was living in and died. The story they heard is she thought she could fly. I bring this up because we need to watch this. This is not good for communities. At the same time, a group is looking, I haven't seen anything in writing yet, looking at putting a ballot measure together to take to the voters that would allow full legalization of all psychedelic drugs. It wouldn't just be personal possession, you could make it and sell it. And oh, by the way, they're saying if your community permits the sale of marijuana, you would automatically have to permit the sale of these psychedelic drugs. This is something everybody needs to look at, make your own opinion on it. But whatever your feelings are, please contact the State Assembly because this is now in their house. And I know I've expressed my opinion. I just don't think it's a good idea. Watch what you sign when you go to the grocery stores. Make sure you read that petition so you know what it's all about. 2 more items and then I will turn it over to another council member. I want to remind everybody the importance of receiving an inoculation, those who can. I understand there are religious reasons. I understand there are health reasons. But if you can receive an inoculation, please do. We still don't have a high number of inoculations in San Bernardino County. We need to get that number up. This is for everybody's protection and personal safety. This isn't something to push aside. I heard today another person I know in their 80s, she had come down with this earlier in the year. They thought she was okay with it. She is now in a convalescent home and most likely will not live because her lungs are just not strong enough even after it passed for her to continue to function. So this is something very serious, and please get an inoculation. Finally, I did attend a Gold Line meeting. The JPA, we are pushing forward with this as much as we can. There is tremendous support I'm sure everybody saw the article in the newspaper the other day about the large number of legislators who actually agree and want the Gold Line to Claremont and then to Montclair. This is important for everybody. This is a top priority because it moves people. To the critics who have said, oh, well, it just takes somebody from Montclair and moves them into LA County. It's not just Montclair. You could live in Rancho Cucamonga, Upland, Fontana, drive to the station in Montclair, get on the Gold Line and go to work in Arcadia. You can't help where you work, but if we can help make your commute easier, and it's not saying to only use mass transit. Mass transit and the private car often go hand in hand. And this is a huge benefit. Think of our students who need to go to colleges. Think of our seniors who may no longer drive, but can get a ride to the Gold Line station and maybe go to Pasadena and Old Town just to have lunch with longtime friends. Think about the people in Pasadena and Old Town who may want to come out here and shop. Eventually, with a lot of diligence, we can get it to the Ontario airport. But right now, we have to get this to Montclair. So I urge everybody, if you have questions on it, call myself, call Mayor Dutre. We serve on these committees, and we really want to see this done. I said next will be Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Howerton, it's good to see you. It's been a long time, very long time. It's good to see you. Glad that you're still in the city. I know we don't always agree on everything, but nonetheless, I respect your opinion. I told you that on Facebook as well, so I appreciate you coming and showing your face. By all means, make this a common occurrence. Come to the podium and give us grief if you must, all right? You probably will, which is fine. Regarding the freeway construction and the lane issues on Monte Vista Avenue, I always try to give an update on that. SBCTA, through the efforts, reaching out efforts from myself and Mayor Dutre, they have stated that they intend to paint the southbound Monte Vista lanes north of the 10 freeway with directional pattern markings showing drivers that the right lane is a freeway-only lane and the left lane is common flow for traffic. So it'll hopefully will alleviate the problem of the last-minute cutting in and merging of the right lane traffic into the left. I know Mayor Dutre drove the area himself, and he witnessed the very thing that I was witnessing as well, and quite frankly, getting frustrated with and complaining about. So that is being addressed. Residents just need to sit tight. The construction's going to be with us for 2 years. Central Avenue, Benson, and Monte Vista. They're going to look pretty nasty and dirty and whatnot, but
Benson
nonetheless.
is a mess.
I'm sorry?
Benson is
Yes.
a mess.
Nonetheless, we got to just endure for the long haul, but there is some minor progress. I haven't dropped the ball, and I'm on it. Mary Westerland, I know you're not in the room, but thank you for briefing me on some of code enforcement's recent activities and the work in progress being made. If we could, staff, please, let's have the Monday, July 19th meeting for code enforcement. I'd like to get a report. I know we haven't met, I believe, in 2 months, maybe longer. But if we can have a meeting, even if it's just a general report that'll last half hour, 45 minutes, I'd appreciate it. On June 11th, I participated in an 11-hour ride-along with the Montclair Police Department, spent some time with our police officers. There was one thing that I didn't realize, and that is our code enforcement officers, when they go out to abate graffiti in some of the roughest parts of town, they do so more or less in a very unsafe area and a war zone. Thankfully, none of our code enforcement staff have been harmed, but I have a whole new sense, not that I've ever disrespected their work, but I have a whole new sense of even much more respect for what they do, as simply as painting over graffiti and getting rid of unnecessary garbage and whatnot in our toughest areas, because they do so and they could get hurt, but thankfully, thank God, they have not. So kudos to them. Just a reminder, piggybacking on another one of my pet peeve issues, I guess, is the fireworks issue. At about, I think, 2 or 3 council meetings ago, we agreed that after the 4th, we would get a presentation and a report. I'd still like for us to do that, depending on how it goes. I'm crossing my fingers that the calls drop and they don't exacerbate and become more prolific than what we saw on those maps at the last council meeting. My next point or inquiry is regarding the discussion on masks. I know that Councilmember Johnson had requested a presentation or report of some kind about a month ago, maybe or so. I noticed we haven't had it yet. I know OSHA issued some recent regulations or rules, if you will, regarding the masks in the workplace. I would like for us to do that maybe, well, I know maybe not at the next council meeting because those are budget issues and we are not going to be here till July 19th, but maybe at that time we can also include that. Personally, I'm uneasy with requiring employees to show proof of vaccination. I think that's a very personal issue and one that I think is protected through HIPAA, but that's my opinion. And then the Montclair Little League, first of all, thank you to my colleagues, the city manager, Public Works, Human Services, for negotiating that agreement, I don't want to say contract, but agreement back in April that allowed us to play and use the parks again when things were uncertain with respect to the pandemic and the virus. Our boys and girls have enjoyed it. Our families have enjoyed it. Our season comes to an end this week, if I'm not mistaken. I'm losing track of my dates. I believe it is this week. So the season was, if it weren't for the efforts of staff and this council, my kids and my colleagues as coaches would not have been able to play and enjoy the park. So I am very grateful. It's going to hurt to say goodbye to some of my kids that I've kind of grown attached to. Dang it, I did not think I was going to get choked up saying that. I told you guys I was the crier when I got elected to this council. Excuse me. We got good kids, that's all I'm going to say. We got very good kids, and some of them don't necessarily come from the best family situations, and our sports are what actually keep them grounded. So, final item, and I forgot to do this last meeting. We all know about the one firefighter that was shot in Agua Dulce, Tori Carlin. Oh, I know we adjourned in the memory of Sheriff Dominic Vaca last meeting. I wanted to include firefighter Carlin, although it's out of our jurisdiction, but it raises a very good point. You don't hear about firefighters turning on firefighters and shooting fighter fires. It's very rare, if an anomaly. But it happened. And I know that there is now discussion at the state level of possibly offering some mental relief hours to firefighters, given their workload and what they do and whatnot. I just be prepared, us as a city and as a council, that might come perhaps next legislative session here in the state. I know one of our states has considered that. I say that because I know San Bernardino County Fire has given 56 hours of leave to their firefighters to be used within a 2-year period. And it's non-personable. It's just 56 hours. It takes them leave to decompress, spend time with their families so they're not constantly under the stress, and as a reward for all that they did for COVID. But I'm hearing that other states are considering making that a mandate on local jurisdictions, so don't be surprised if that comes forward. But nonetheless, my heart goes out to the firefighter community. And then finally, I will go ahead and touch on this. I did issue a statement shortly after being elected to this council, and I stand by it. I'm going to pull the article up right now, where I stated that I firmly operate with the belief that all of our residents, and I emphasize the word all, deserve the benefit and use of all city programs and services, regardless of their race, color, creed, age, religion, faith, disability, cultural background, sex, or sexual orientation. And I do mean that. I know some statements that I've made in the course of my prior employment may be of the contrary, and I know some folks are a little bit apprehensive, but as a councilman, I guarantee you that I look out for all residents, and I don't attach a delineation or a label to those residents. Anyone that lives in this city, I represent, and I will fight for, and they're entitled to the full benefit and use of every city program and every city service here, and I will defend that tooth and nail. We might disagree over semantics, we might disagree over policy and how we get there, but in the end, I think we're all on the same page. And with that, I will conclude my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And now, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I just have a few quick items. One, I want to address the mask issue. I believe City Manager Starr has been working on that, but it's a moving target because things change so often. I'm sure that will be coming to us soon. But however, what we have heard, all of us have heard, that if you got the vaccine, you don't need to wear a mask. If you didn't get the vaccine, you need to wear a mask. And whether or not staff in either this city or in other businesses have to identify whether or not they got it, I don't have a problem with that. I remember when my children were very small, they didn't get to go to school unless I provided copies of their vaccine. And the reason for that is to prevent infection from spreading. So if people need to demonstrate or show their vaccine card, I'm totally fine with it. I know that I'm only one person, but I'm totally fine with it because I want us all to be safe. So if there are things that are going to happen that, you know, people have something on their badge or whatever that identifies that they're good, I'm good with that because it protects all of us. But I'm standing by. I'm sure City Manager Starr will come up with the final mask policy. While we're talking about vaccine, I need to announce that there is a vaccine clinic starting at the community center starting next week. The vaccines will be given on Thursday and Friday from 10 to 2. I don't believe you need an appointment. You can just drive up. Ms. Richter, am I correct?
An appointment is preferred.
Okay, but it's not preferred but not mandatory?
Right.
Thank you, ma'am.
And it'll be every Thursday and Friday through July in the
Excellent.
community center.
Thank you, Ms. Richter. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is some notification from the Southern California Gas Company. During the pandemic, they were not able to provide all of the services that they were accustomed to providing, so they were only responding to essential emergency service, like gas outage, et cetera. But now, since COVID is slowing down a little bit, they are now doing non-essential checkups for example, they will do appliance checkups and things like that. So if you need some assistance that you were not able to get during the pandemic, please just contact them directly. The telephone number is 1-800-427-2200, or you can visit them at socalgas.com/schedule-service. So if residents need any services in their homes that they were unable to get during the pandemic, now is the time. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Councilmember. And Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you. So we covered a lot of ground today, so I just wanted to commend City Manager Starr, John Hamilton, our City Attorney Robbins, and all the other Montclair employees that I know were instrumental in negotiating the agreements, as well as the Montclair Firefighters Association. I know it's been a long time coming negotiating, and I'm really comfortable that everything has been covered in a way that allows for us to make an informed decision. I'd also like to commend Human Services Director Marcia Richter for always representing our senior citizens and making sure that their programs are working and there for them to get their meals. I really appreciate that everyone in our city does a tremendous job making sure that we are running smoothly. And I am excited for our city to celebrate Juneteenth in the future. I think that's absolutely incredible. And I would like to congratulate our officers for their achievements earlier today, and thank you for the background stories. I thought those were really interesting, and I'm proud that we have officers like that in our city.
Mayor Pro Tem Rue, before you adjourn, if I
Yes.
can make just one comment quickly. I did issue a comprehensive mask directive yesterday.
Yes.
It went out to the city council members and to all of the employees. That mask directive follows the directions that are issued to us from Cal OSHA. Cal OSHA is what determines what our occupational health and safety standards are. That is the guidance that we have to follow, not the CDC and not the California Department of Public Health when it relates to the employment arena. And so the guidance or the directives that were issued yesterday and sent out to all employees and the council follow the Cal OSHA directives. And I do need to emphasize that if we do not follow those directives, and one of the directives is that we require that employees demonstrate documentation related to their vaccination status. If we do not implement and follow that, then the city is subject to citation from Cal OSHA. And Cal OSHA does issue citations. We have received citations from Cal OSHA. They are excessive and they are cumulative. And all it takes is for one employee to contact Cal OSHA or even a citizen to advise that we are not following the guidance or directives that are issued by that agency. So unless there are additional changes to the mask policies from Cal OSHA, the guidance or the directive that was issued yesterday is the directive for now until such time that Cal OSHA tells us that we can change them.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
City Star.
Mr. City Manager. Oh, I'm sorry.
I thank you for that. I should have checked my email and I would have seen it and I wouldn't have said I was on standby. So my apologies for that. Thank you for all that you do.
And thank you for that update. Just for the record, I am wearing a face covering. I'm looking at my card here. I was vaccinated on 12/29/20. The follow-up was January 26th, 2021. But I will continue to wear a mask. I believe it's part of public safety. I have had friends die from this, and I found out today a very dear friend of mine who came down with this earlier in the year. They thought she was better. She's now in the hospital, and she will not make it. I believe it's public safety. When I applied for different jobs in my life, I had to have proof that I had take a TB test. Many years ago, when I traveled to Hong Kong, I needed to have a list of the vaccinations that I had. To me, it's public safety. I don't think it's intrusive because this is about everybody's safety. This is very real. And to me, it's no different asking me to wear a mask than asking me to put on a seatbelt in a car. It's no different than saying that on the 4th of July, I really shouldn't be setting off fireworks because they really present a public safety issue. Everybody will have different opinions. We can all agree or disagree. But I've had my inoculation, so if anybody thinks I'm wearing this because I haven't, no, I just believe in this. So, and unless anybody has anything, Councilmember Lopez.
I've been quiet throughout the last comments. I wasn't intending to speak on this mask issue right now, but nonetheless, I just figured I better chime in. My concern is, one, I've never been a fan of an outside agency dictating policy to us as local electeds, so I have a problem with OSHA doing that, but I understand that that's their purview, per se. My concern is for those employees that choose not to reveal for whatever personal, moral reasons, either not to take the vaccine, or even if they did and they just don't want to reveal the details and particulars of their medical record, that what is going to happen to those employees? Are we going to have a separate but equal status? And this isn't just with Montclair. I mean, this is every agency. I have a problem with this. Sure, yes, kids are different than adults. I mean, kids are beholden to the medical decisions of their parents, so it's a little different situation when it comes to schools. But when it comes to adults and employees, I do have a problem requiring them to show proof that they're vaccinated for this particular virus disease. And then what? Where does it stop from there? I'm uneasy about it. I very much do not like it. In the restaurant world and in the stores that are open now, it is by the honor system, and we take risks with that. we should implement the same policy regarding the honor system regarding our employees. And there are maybe some employees that just don't want to reveal too much about themselves. I think we should honor that and trust them. I've always said from the beginning, there are consequences to any action, whether you take it or not, and you suffer or benefit from those actions. I'm not knocking the comments made by either of you. I just am expressing where I come from, and I guess it's a very libertarian approach to my philosophy and thinking, but that's where I have a hard time swallowing this and whatnot. But anyhow, those are my 2 cents for what they're worth.
And I can respect your opinion. Everybody's entitled to one. I tend to look at having friends in the restaurant industry who've owned restaurants and friends who've owned catering businesses. Their employees have to be tested for TB. If I want a job in the restaurant industry, I have to take a tuberculosis test. And that test has to be, I have to be retested every so many years to make sure I don't have tuberculosis. And I have to be able to prove to my employer that I've had a TB test. So you have a different view. I just put it in view with that I certainly don't want to go into a restaurant, and even if I've had a vaccination, be served by a waiter or waitress who may be asymptomatic, carrying coronavirus. But that's just my view. So anyway, it proves we have a bunch of different views here, but we came together on everything tonight, so that's okay. That adjourns our meeting to the the closed session, and those items were presented earlier this evening. Thank you.